Yo, what's up everybody, my name is James, and welcome back to the Kirby Marathon, where today we'll be taking a look at Kirby's Adventure for the NES. Kirby was a little bit bland last time, what with him only being able to inhale and spit out enemies and whatnot, but now, in this brand new game, released in 1993, Kirby now has the ability to inherit the powers of his foes and use them against others. You know, the thing he can do in literally every game after this. Well, it all started here, in the second game strangely, and after the release of the Super Nintendo on the NES, which is flat out bizarre. But of course, since it was released so far into the NES's lifespan, it's one of the best looking games on the system. And hey, it even tells you how to draw them. Draw a circle, dot the eyes, add a great big smile, and...
So, like, do you want this game back, or...?
Away! Anyway, on to the plot. One day in Dreamland, no one had any dreams, which is apparently a huge crisis in Dreamland for whatever reason. Kirby goes to the Fountain of Dreams, where dreams are made via the Star Rod, where he finds King Dedede swimming in the waters. This is when he finds out that he has broken up the Star Rod into pieces and given them to his friends. And thus, Kirby sets out on another epic journey to gather the pieces of the Star Rod to bring back dreams. This plot is actually pretty interesting in my opinion. We don't have anything convoluted or unnecessary, just Dedede's broken the Star Rod, go get the pieces. Thing is, you have to wait for the title screen to move on to this tutorial cutscene, which takes a couple minutes just to get to the plot, so it could easily be skipped and go unnoticed until the end. That is, unless you happen to have the manual, read it on the internet, or just memorize it from your childhood. Speaking of which, this tutorial cutscene shows you what you can do. You can do everything from the original Dreamland game, except now you have the aforementioned copy ability. Meaning that if you have an enemy that has a copy ability in your mouth, you can swallow them for that power, meaning you can choose whatever power-up is available, rather than having one given to you at a specific time in a specific stage. There's abilities that would become classics, such as sword, cutter, beam, so on. There's ones you don't see too often, such as a laser, backdrop, and needle. And then there's the misfit Ball Kirby, making its first and only appearance in a Kirby game, besides spin-offs. In order to use Ball Kirby, you need to bounce off the walls in order to damage enemies, and if you're not good at it, well then be prepared to hear this a lot. Bitching about the copy abilities aside, the variety of these do make for some interesting replayability. And as you know, this will become the staple of the series for decades to come. And again, the controls are the same with the addition of the copy abilities and whatever set abilities allow you to do. I like the controls if they weren't so unresponsive and laggy. There are so many moments where I get hit because the controller either doesn't react fast enough or doesn't react at all. Maybe it's the fact I'm using PS3 controller on an emulator, but I don't know. There's also some really weird stuff that happened too. For instance, look at this. I swallowed an enemy that was above my head, nowhere near where it should have been to be sucked up. And then, I spit it at an enemy right in front of me, and pop, it goes right through and I take damage. What the fuck? Again, maybe it's the emulator, maybe it's just a glitch. I'm just gonna stop bitching and get on with the rest of this. There are 7 worlds, levels. And the layout of each level has this hub area of sorts where you can go around and get to all the levels and such. There's quite the variety of what you can do here. Along with the levels themselves, there's also several minigames you can play to get lives and goodies. There's the Warp Star Station, which allows you to travel between levels. The Museum, where you'll find a select enemy just waiting for you to eat, which is kinda morbid now that I think about it. Crane Fever, which is basically a 2D crane game. Egg Catcher, where you need to swallow eggs and avoid bombs, which again is pretty morbid. The Arena, where you fight a mini-boss for their power-up and a Metamato to restore any lost health. And finally, Quick Draw, where you need to react fast or get shot. They're all pretty fun, though Crane Fever is my favorite for how addictive and easy it is. But fuck me if you play it on hard mode. Aside from the minigames, each level boasts 4 to 6 stages, each having a unique design, and each level having a certain theme and boss. Some are brand new, like Paint Roller and Heavy Mole, both of which we hardly ever see again, and Wispy Woods and Krakow make a return from their Game Boy debut, which you better get used to say the least. And this is also the game that introduces us to Antonio Banderas. Sorry, too much brain scratch. This game gives us Meta Knight, a masked man whose design inspired me to make a LEGO recreation of him, and can't seem to decide whose side he's on. Seriously, in some levels he gives you an invincibility candy, while in others he sends his moves after you, and you even find him yourself. Something about testing his skills or something, whatever, it's bullshit. In order, it's Vegetable Valley with Wispy Woods, Ice Cream Island's Paint Roller, Butter Buildings, Mr. Shine and Mr. Bright, Grape Garden's Krakow, Yogurt Yard's Heavy Mole, Orange Ocean's Meta Knight, and finally, Rainbow Resort's Showdown against King Dedede. Most of these fights are pretty standard, but poor Wispy Woods. With coffee abilities now in the game, he's getting raped like there's no tomorrow. The other boss fights are pretty interesting though. There's lots of movement that's fast enough to keep you on your toes, yet slow enough that you can still hit them easily. And that fight against King Dedede is as cool as ever, using a wide variety of attacks and sporting a good amount of health. And it's pretty epic with the music from the remake. Oh yeah, I should probably talk about the remake, shouldn't I? Yes folks, there's a remake of this game called Kirby Nightmare in Dreamland for the Game Boy Advance. This was a pretty faithful remake, changing pretty much nothing besides the graphics made to resemble the anime that was going on at the time, and the minigames for some reason, now being an explosive version of Hot Potato, rail grinding, and a samurai reflex competition. I'd say that this is a better version of the two as well as being cheaper in some places, albeit by a small margin. Back to King Dedede. Once he's defeated, you now have the entire Star Rod and move on to the Fountain of Dreams. As Dedede tries to tell you not to put in the Star Rod, which Kirby says, "Get the fuck out of my face, I can't trust you," as he puts the Star Rod into the Fountain of Dreams. Everything's fine at first, but then an evil orb comes out of the fountain and flies off, and Dedede shoots us into space to go after it. This fight is bullshit. You have a limited amount of time before the Nightmare Orb flies away, and you'll have to get crushed by the screen, and your shots have to be very precise to hit it. Remember that thing I said earlier about bosses being at just the right speed? Well, that's thrown out the window here, as the Nightmare Orb flies much faster than you can, and its shots block your projectiles, making this fight very stressful considering that you only shoot in one direction. Also, in a rare occurrence for this series, the music is terrible. It's just kind of a jumbled mess of notes. It's dispenseful, I suppose? I only call it to attention because it sticks out from the rest of the series. Once that bullshit's over with, we fly to the moon, where the orb transforms into the creature known as Nightmare, whose GBA remake counterpart is, as I said earlier, made to reflect the anime. You can only attack his tornado body, which is hidden underneath his cloak, and he'll only open that to attack you, which is pretty unfair, though you do have free movement, unlike the orb. Also unlike the orb, there's no time limit, just fighting him one-on-one and hitting his body whenever you can. Once he's killed, seriously, how many kids does this scare? You learn that King Dedede actually broke up the Star Rod to prevent Nightmare from taking over the dreams of the people of Dreamland. Okay, there's the strong and silent type, and then there's just flat out being too stupid not to say anything. At least that's what I would say if he didn't actually try to tell Kirby in the manual, for which Kirby told him off and left on his quest. But anyway, the Star Rod is returned again, and the citizens of Dreamland can dream once more, ending Kirby's adventure.
Well, this is quite a mixed bag of emotions. Now on my final thoughts.
Kirby's Adventure is, in my opinion, a decently fun game. The visuals are great for the system, and the music's good, with Nightmare Orb being an exception. I definitely wouldn't recommend it for emulators because of the input lag I constantly experience and thus unfair deaths, but unless you don't have an NES or GBA, or a console that can be hacked, and as long as you're fine with it, though I do think that this is the low point of the Kirby series. He still had quite a ways to go, and man did he come a long way. You can easily get the original NES or GBA remake for a cheap price, though the eShop version is cheaper, but anything will do considering that it's on pretty much everything that plays Nintendo games or can be hacked to do so. But yeah, bottom line, I think it's a good game with a great soundtrack, but not something you should play as your first Kirby game. Well, that's about all the time I have for this episode. If there's anything you'd like to share with me, let me know in the comments down below. And next time on the Kirby Marathon, we'll be heading back to the Game Boy for some animal action. But until then, I'll see you guys next time. Later.
Hey dude, you want this game back?
You motherfucker, you're holding... You're holding it upside down.
It was dark! You couldn't see how it was dark.
Dumbass.
Fuck you, I couldn't see it.